the things you put me through.
My husband's request was, to say the least, unusual. Why else would I initially have refused? I, always so eager to say yes. His tastes had never been pedestrian, but this was beyond the pale, even by our standards. Few outside of our marriage would understand it. Fewer yet condone my decision to grant it. But then, nobody outside of our marriage would have believed it in the first place. Not of him. Not of the esteemed Arthur Wilmer, whom they knew as a hard-working man, a gentle father, which I'll admit he could be, when and if the mood struck him. And it often did strike him, in company. That's how we ended up so alone in the matter. We had so assiduously closeted and protected his true nature, he and I, that I had backed myself into a corner with my very silence. If I came clean, revealed all, who, after all these years of seemingly blissful married life, would have believed me? Nobody could understand what I was bargaining for. What was at stake that night. I warned him, when he forced my hand in the matter, that this time would be different, that it was no longer a game, that every woman has her breaking point. But he didn't believe me. After my capitulation, we had only to choose a date and time. For the location, the backdrop, he chose the red drawing room. I do believe that was strategic. Something about the oak mantle, the crimson damask, the gilded sconces seemed to speak to him. Despite the hours we'd spent there together throughout the years, the room retained a brash, masculine quality that engendered in me the guilty dis-ease of an interloper. A guest in his space, tolerated but transient. I had the staff beat the rugs in the early morning and the fireplace lit in the late afternoon to ensure the drafty space was warmed through by the time he arrived. He'd given me pocket money to have the end tables and mantels festooned with hothouse orchids. My morning was spent gathering every willow-patterned china vase, every brass pot we owned in order to accommodate them. Orchids make my eyes stream. Gory, garish things, a Gothic flower. They belong in the wilderness, where their largeness can be offset by their surroundings. Indoors, their size and scent are overwhelming. One in particular quite frightened and offended me with its loudness. It was a rare specimen. Pitch black at the core, the darkness gradually, almost imperceptibly diffused with veins of burgundy, until a splash of crimson at the edge of its sharp petals, gave the impression of having been dipped in blood. Observing it, I noticed a slight asymmetry and folded one of the petals so as to frame and expose the core in the most pleasing fashion. Arthur was fond of saying, in affectionate moments, that my keen eye for detail was one of the reasons he'd married me. In other words, if I were lax with any of the arrangements, he would notice. Around the obsidian vase, the one holding the dreadful black orchid, I tied a length of white ribbon and was careful to ensure the tails were of equal length before trimming the ends off with this, my favorite knife. Despite my best efforts, I never did become as adept with scissors as I am with a blade. That's why I prefer to keep this one in particular always at hand. It works wonders when performing small errands and maintenances around the house. It's not large or impressive, of course, more akin to my small letter opener than the foils hanging in Arthur's study. But as you can see, it's deceptively sharp. And aren't the carvings on the handle just darling? It's real ivory, imported from the colonies, and now it lives in my apron pocket. Remarkable. I like to hold it sometimes, just to feel the weight of it in my fist. I can't explain exactly why, other than that it gives me a sense of purpose I'm seldom able to find outside of motherhood, outside of pleasing Arthur. I remember it was half an hour before he was due home, and my hair was wrong. The maid I'd hired, Liza, had fixed it in the morning, nothing extravagant, just a sensible bun. But now, my fringe, instead of remaining curled as it had before my errands, it had fallen flat against my forehead. Moments before, I had been warm with my efforts, flushed, but happy and wide-eyed. I might even venture to say, proud. Foolish. But I think a part of me truly believed that if my preparations were exemplary, if I didn't complain, if my submission were perfectly complete and encompassing, all would fall into place. A key, turning the tumblers of a lock, the right amount of effort and cajoling would uncover the secret he so preciously guarded. The secret combination of words and deeds that would make him happy. But now my hair was wrong. Arthur? I'm not ready. Darling, how was your day? Not a word from me? I've arranged the room as you requested. Do you like the orchids? My eyes watered a touch, but I think I managed to trim the stems and ribbons symmetrically. I can hang your coat for you if you... Oh, all right, you hang it. Your smoking jacket is there on the armrest. Darling? How do I look?
You couldn't have done something with that hair.
I'm sorry, I considered curling it, but I thought it might be vulgar. More effort than you would want.
Interesting. And when exactly have you known me not to require a certain amount of effort? We instruct the staff to wear a uniform, Alice. I never leave for the office without my collar starched. Is it that much of a leap in principle to ask that you spend the same amount of time upon your own appearance?
No, darling, of course it isn't.
How strange you are, Sparrow. Your nonsense is never delivered by halves, is it? More effort than I would want. Truly, you baffle me. Though, I must admit, you've exceeded my expectations this evening. No obvious mistakes. This place looks acceptable.
How to describe my relief at having pleased him? I had tried so hard, even secretly enjoyed the challenge. Almost enough to forget why I'd complied, but I couldn't. He had said the room was acceptable, and the praise was accompanied by a slight squeeze to the back of my neck, a possessive trail of his fingers down my spine, the kindest he'd been to me in weeks. When he moved away, I felt the way an amputee must, wanting to scratch a limb no longer there. Only when it was taken from me did the warmth of his body seem so essential. Now, despite the fire, I couldn't understand how I'd stood in this chilly room before his arrival. A ghost of musk and ambergris stood next to me. We watched together as my flesh and blood husband moved toward the mantel. Might I roll that cigarette for you, darling?
Why on earth would you do that?
Haven't I always, since we were married? It's no trouble. It makes me feel... I like to feel close to you.
Your rituals and fixations. Tell me, do you want your palms yellowed? Your fingers to smell like tobacco?
Well, it's...
Then allow me to undertake the Herculean task of rolling my own cigarettes. I think I can manage. Just about. Besides, isn't there a key element you've neglected in your preparations?
He was right. He was always right. Of all the steps, I'd left out the most important. Deliberately. I suppose a part of me had wanted to defy him, to delay the inevitable. I should have known by then how foolish a hope that was. I hadn't defied him, merely proven my discomfort by the omission, which was, of course, exactly what he wanted. His triumph followed me all the way out of the room, down the landing to the small cabinet where I kept my supplies. Brushes, paints, and pots of water, my own easel, light and portable enough to suit my small frame. A wedding present from him, carefully researched and ordered to specification. Several trips back and forth, and all was in place, ready and waiting. Your chair, darling, is it comfortable? I had Jameson select the brandy, but there are others downstairs if it's not up to scratch.
Both are sufficient. You'll be polite to Miss Crawford when she arrives.
Of course.
Because I know how odd and contemplative you can get. It borders on ignorant. People don't like an excess of quietude, Alice. It makes you look sly.
I promise to make Miss Crawford feel welcome.
That isn't to say I want you chattering away without end.
No.
Because you'll seem a silly and frivolous thing if you do. And I don't want any guest of mine leaving my house thinking that I married a fool. Because I didn't. I'm not berating you, darling. Don't look so sulky. I'm merely being frank with you, as you deserve. Respecting you.
I know.
Helping you.
I know that too, dear.
There's my clever sparrow. Smile for me, will you? This is a happy occasion.
What else could I do but smile? When I felt the corners of my mouth begin to tug down at the edges to give me away, I lifted the closest jar and pretended to inspect the clarity of the water. Then it came.
No Minotaurs here, my charming Ariadne, just your devoted Theseus, bound to follow the trail marked by your little ball of thread.
Oh? Then allow me to pull the thread a touch tauter. Come here, you. Oh, darling. Forgive me. Should the maid be here at this hour? I assumed we'd have the evening to ourselves.
She knew I was no maid.
Actually, my love, this is Alice.
That's your wife. I see what you meant.
Alice, stop messing around on the floor. Stand up straight and greet Miss Crawford. My apologies, Vera. She's ever had the manners of a child with its thumb in its mouth.
A child, you called me. In front of a girl who couldn't be past 20.
Alice, shake hands, why don't you? I'm sure you two will be firm friends.
Forgive me if I do not embrace you. I fear there are shards of glass in my palm. But you are welcome, Miss Crawford.
Orchids. Archie, you remembered.
Of course I did. You like them?
They're beautiful.
Alice had arranged them specially for you.
It's true. I hope you'll excuse me if my eyes seem to water. It's an effect orchids have upon me.
I must say, it's a joy to see you two talking. Conducive to a productive and pleasurable evening. Vera, are you ready to be immortalized?
Immortalized? Your wife is that good of a painter, is she?
So she says. I suppose we'll find out before the evening's over.
Where do you want me then, Auntie? Should I start disrobing now?
No! Wait. Alice will assist you.
Are you quite sure about that? Your wife doesn't look too pleased. A little harsh on her, isn't it?
You needn't worry on my behalf, Miss Crawford. I'm a rare breed of woman. I understand the importance of discretion. As for the unconventional nature of the situation, believe me when I say that there is nothing on this earth I wouldn't do for my family.
You see, my dear, all is ready, all is prepared. All that myself and Alice require is a model, a muse. Alice, inspire yourself. Assist Miss Crawford with her disrobing.
I'm not your little doll, Artie.
All the more reason to have a girl attend to you. Your corset sprung apart too easily. I might suspect you of being a loose woman.
And you'd loathe that, wouldn't you, you cad?
If you were to debase yourself in front of me, hunger and desperation incarnate? Indeed. Enough of that would begin to quickly wear on my nerves.
It was aimed at me. His jabs always were. He punctured me, day after day after day.
Alice, the lady's clothes.
Lady. A loose application of the word. She was one of those new women. Stepped into my home, uncorseted, in a shirt and knickerbockers of all things. Newsboy cap perched askew on her head. She only lacked a tie. As I peeled off her layers, I could quite imagine her at his club, perched on his lap, sharing his cigarette. She looked as if she drank brandy. No, not brandy, I decided. Brandy was too expensive and sophisticated. She could never afford it without the largesse my husband provided. I unbuttoned her shirt and decided, rather cruelly, that she drank gin. I had to cling to my bitterness, my suppositions, as inaccurate as they might have been. They were an essential distraction as I bared her down to the flesh. If I loathed her, made the decision to loathe her from the start, I had no need to fear her, no need to feel threatened by her youth. It pains me even now to say it, to remember her in my mind's eye. But she was infinitely more attractive once deprived of her male clothing. I took a step back and took in every naked inch of her and clutched at the knife in my apron pocket for comfort. Her body was an artist's dream. Rounded arms and stomach, full breasts and buttocks. Admittedly, her dark hair was too cropped and too curly, but he seemed to have developed a taste for the gammy. Seeing her in that moment, naked and proud, boyish if not for her curves, I understood. She had meat on her bones, as Arthur would have phrased it. Her cheeks weren't gaunt and skeletal. Her arms weren't brittle twigs. This woman, this girl, had never carried a baby. Her thighs weren't stretched and marred with purple stripes. Her breasts had never been swollen with milk, then shriveled back down to empty, saggy bags once the milk was used up. Her nipples hadn't been tugged and sucked and squeezed out of shape by an infant mouth. Her backside didn't bear a scar, the souvenir of a rat and cane. She was more than a dream. She was my antithesis. Everything pale and thin and drawn and meek and motherly about me, he had subverted and brought to life in her.
Well, Alice, what make your artist's eyes of our model? Is her form not pleasing? Am I not the most generous of husbands, gifting you with such a muse?
Miss Crawford's shape is very agreeable to a painter.
Then hadn't you best repair to your easel and ready yourself? Alice, how long has it been?
19 days.
It can be 90.
begin as soon as you're ready, Miss Crawford. A diplomat. That's what I'd slowly trained myself to become. A politician with a fixed smile and dead eyes, reciting a spin doctor's script in a clear, confident voice. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes I was only met with further mockery for trying. She settled herself, naked on her chaise. The one that had been a wedding present for Mr. Wilmer's great aunt. The chaise on which we'd spent many a Christmas morning, drinking mulled wine and spiced rum, me sewing, him reading. We'd pass around a plate of roasted chestnuts and orange slices, sing carols, act out ghost stories. It was the only morning of the year Edgar was allowed in the red drawing room. He'd often play with his toys at our feet. And I never lose my temper, I thought, as the woman signaled to me that she was ready. I never refuse a demand. I very rarely talk back, if at all. I was so fiery as a little girl. Difficult to pinpoint when and how exactly I lost that. Once, my sister Maria stole my favorite doll. She dropped it on the hardwood floor, returned it with a scratch along its glass eye. I always was possessive, even then. The damage made me so livid that I hacked at the mane of her beloved rocking horse with a penknife. And then I pushed it down the stairs. When Father found out what I'd done, he strapped my behind black and blue. I remember taking it well for an 8-year-old. I had known beforehand there would be a price to pay, and I willingly paid it now. The strap seemed a fair exchange for the pleasure of having balanced the scales with Maria. Father even praised me for my clear sense of justice and took 10 straps off the penalty. I loved him for not sparing me the rod. It embedded in me 2 lessons that I have not forgotten. Submit to punishment with dignity when warranted. And do not take what is not yours. As I grew, the lesson was repeatedly reinforced. The schoolmarm, who'd rap my knuckles with a ruler for dropping a stitch. The vicar, who spanked my bottom for whispering during Sunday service. My mother, so pretty and polite, cultivating her perfect miniatures in the form of Maria and me. Perhaps that's how it happened. Every little trickling drop of praise for my docility. Every furrowed brow if I should become indignant or sulky. Over the years, they had so slowly, so insidiously filtered into me, like chemicals in the bloodstream, that I did what Arthur wanted. And found myself in my own home, our home, painting his mistress. I'll say this for my talent and for his model. Her form came quickly into shape on the paper. The slight, coquettish cross of her legs at the ankles, the way she'd artfully flung one arm above her head, the contrast of white on black, her wrist against her cloud of dark hair. She angled her face towards the light so well, deliberately deepening the shadows at the base of her throat and her collarbone. Even her fingers, which she extended wistfully towards the wolfskin throw over the back of the chaise, gave the impression of a longing. So much story in her face and in her pose. He had settled back into his chair, his posture directly complementing Miss Crawford's. They could easily have been in the painting together. He sat with his legs spread, his free hand lying idly on the armrest. With his other, he was swirling a snifter of brandy in small, repetitive circles. A miniature hurricane, or equally destructive force of nature, sloshing against the rim of the glass, never quite escaping its confines. I imagined I could feel the very movement of the alcohol beneath my skin, in my throat, and in my eardrums, as if I were the glass in his hand, subject to the ceaseless whirling. It was a cruel perversion of a rhythm, seemingly regular, but the closer one listened, the more obvious and horrific became the distortion, the slight imbalance. Soon, the circle would be so tight, so restrictive, that the brandy within the glass would seem to fall still again. The very speed of its spinning, making it look immobile. But the thrashing within would continue, invisible to the naked eye. Once, he took me to the British Museum to see Lovatelli's Venus. She was in a special, cordoned-off room. Ordinarily, women weren't allowed inside, but my status as a married woman meant that with him, I was permitted. The marble lady was beautiful. Of that there is no question. But I remember being struck by the coldness of that beauty. Not only the physical coldness of the marble, but by the distant remove in Venus's expression. She looked tranquil, but superior, as if in possession of a secret her humble beholders could never realize or comprehend. I pitied her for her lonely podium, for not having a husband. Better to kneel as warm flesh and blood than stand aloof on a chilly dais. Afterward, He bought me sherbet from a street vendor. We sat on the museum steps and ate it together, laughing at the idea that we must look like pigeons in our matching gray overcoats. It was winter, you see, and cold, but we sat on the steps with his arm looped around me nevertheless, and I delighted at the pressure of his hand at the small of my back, the tang of the sherbet on my tongue. We spied shamelessly on passers-by, constructing anecdotes to explain why that man's coat was ripped, or what that harried lady was evidently so late for. We were more than spouses on that day. We were friends, real friends. I believed on that day that he truly loved me, that he wanted to spend his life with a partner and an equal. It was on that day that I knew in my heart that our marriage would be a success.
Well, Alice, are you done yet?
Not with every detail, but the outline's there.
Let me see.
Do you like it?
I'd say you've done admirably enough. It's a pretty little number, though I think you're lacking some richness and variation in the colour. The shadows on the fro are darker, and you've missed the beam of light on Miss Crawford's right cheek.
The contrast between the lighter and darker shades will come later.
And I'm not sure of your ability to capture the texture of skin. Take Miss Crawford's inner thighs. You've painted them as if they were a generic woman. You've missed the singular beauty of hers. I remember when yours were that smooth, before the boy was born. And are you sure Miss Crawford's nipples are so pale? I feel they're a duskier, a more lusty shade of rose than you're mixing.
I'm trying. I'm sorry if you, Miss Crawford, are displeased with the result.
Displeased? My dear, why would I be displeased? Do you think me such a tyrant I'd berate you for honest effort?
Hold me like you used to, Arthur. Even if it's to pinch, to scratch, just hold me in your arms again. I've missed you so dearly. Just bring my palm to your lips, or let me sit at your feet.
How ludicrous. I thought you said she was good at this, Auntie. You don't look too pleased.
My husband's name is Arthur, Miss Crawford. Are you slow? Why can't you learn?
Alice! Apologise immediately.
But she was
Need I remind you the terms you agreed to this? Did you not say, mere hours ago, you'd do anything to please me? I'm shocked at your churlishness. Vera is our guest. Or did your manners evaporate alongside your house pride and your looks?
You said the room looked acceptable.
Except, at the moment, it contains a jealous and unhinged wife.
Unhinged. I'll advise you to stay young and beautiful forever, Miss Crawford. Men will throw that word at you the moment you're not. The moment then you voice a criticism. If you want to know why a woman is unhinged, look for the man with screwdriver in hand.
Have you completely lost your senses?
Jealous. There's no harm in admitting it now. That's what you want, isn't it? My pride in tatters, my soul laid bare for you and your ingenue to crush underfoot. Very well. I confess it, Arthur. I'm jealous of you. Jealous because jealousy relates to something already possessed, something one wants to keep and protect. I thought I did possess you, as much as any wife can possess a husband. I thought my marriage vows gave me a right to something permanent, something exclusive. You've made it patently clear that that's no longer the case. Very well. I think I can learn to accept that in time, if that's to be the new order. But I think part of you is also jealous of me.
Of you?
You couldn't stand it when I became a mother, could you? The demands on my time, the fact that you were no longer always my first priority. I'm sorry that birthing your child ruined my body. I'm sorry that raising him consumes my waking hours, my energy. I'm sorry that I'm too tired after a day with him to play our old games. But do you know something? I'm not sorry for loving him. There was room in my heart for the both of you, but you could never see that, could you? Couldn't wait a few years till he was more independent, until I regained some of my old self. Tell me, Vera, do you play our old games? Have you knelt and winced at the end of his crop? Has he showed you the trick with the necktie about the wrists?
That's hardly appropriate.
You'll become disenchanted with them. I promise you. Not all at once, but slowly, inch by inch. Life will get in the way. New priorities will grow up around and on top of you. You'll cease to be excited. And he'll shop around. He'll make you the other woman in your own partnership.
Artie and I were meant to be together. The only obstacle in our way is you. He hasn't made me the other woman. You have.
Tell her what you've done, Arthur. Tell her how you coerced me into this. Tell her what she can expect starting a life with you. Tell her what kind of man would send his own son away, would take him from his mother.
Enough! The corridor. Alice. Now!
Take your hands from me. I will not be treated like an animal.
Your senses.
Where is he? What have you done with him? I painted your wretched picture. Now tell me where he is. You owe me.
Owe you? Do you truly have the temerity to claim that I owe you anything, given to how you spoke to me in there?
That was the deal. You said
I said that I would bring him home, granted you painted the portrait with evident dignity and good manners. Both of which I have found severely lacking in you this evening.
What are you saying? I upheld my end of the bargain.
With such poor grace, I consider the agreement nulled.
You are not telling me.
Until such a time as you can learn to conduct yourself reasonably, how can I be sure you wouldn't be a danger to our son? You're unstable, Alice. I'm afraid I wouldn't feel right bringing him home now.
You know damned well I'd sooner die than harm him. You know him. I know
Before this evening, I thought I knew I could count on your obedience, on your discretion. Yet there you stood, doing your utmost to humiliate me. What was all that business with the glass? I'm afraid I have shards in my palm. Ever the little martyr now, aren't you?
Only because I married a satyr. I'll find out where you sent him. I'll track him down, and I will take him from you. To hell with the shame. I'll no longer protect you if you won't protect our son.
Protect him? Who will support you? Your family washed their hands of you long ago.
Because of you.
Because of your obsession with me. You're a cringing lapdog, Alice, and that's all you'll ever be. Perhaps I would respect you more if you would own it. My God, both our natures may be repulsive, but at least I have the damn courage to admit what I am. Look at me, full in the face, and tell me your thighs weren't damp when I had you undress her. Tell me you didn't thrive off the humiliation.
I didn't. This time, I truly didn't. It was too far.
I shall have Miss Crawford's possessions brought here in the morning. Edgar will stay where he is.
No!
Wash off those brushes. Mind you don't waste an excess of clean water.
No! No! Arthur, you cannot take my Edgar from me! You cannot! You cannot! I won't let you! Arthur! Arthur, listen to me! Arthur, please! He's my boy. He didn't do anything wrong. He doesn't know. Arthur, please. Please, just give him back. Just give me one more chance. I promise. I promise I won't let you down. I'll do anything you ask. Oh, Arthur. Arthur, where is he? Arthur, where's my son? Oh, no, don't touch me. Arthur. Arthur, please, just tell me, where is my boy? No! Let go of me! Arthur! Don't touch me! Put me down! Give me my son! Arthur! Arthur, please! Please! Please, just get it off! No! Arthur? Where am I? What? Oh. Of course. The rest of the night is hazy. I remember I came to in the corridor. Can't have been long after. I hadn't been fully unconscious, just dizzied. I kept clutching at my throat as if I could dislodge his hand. But he was no longer there. He had left me. I expected to cry, to feel pain. But after the argument, I only felt numb. The calm of a trapeze artist. Once she's let go of the bar and is weightless in midair. Nothing left to do. Nothing in my power now. So, of all things, do you know what I did? I crept into the kitchen and washed the damned brushes. Because it was a normal thing to do. It busied my hands. I couldn't stop shaking. I remember the paint in the sink circling the drain. Red, the blood of my wounded, murdered marriage. I felt I were disposing of evidence. I was so absorbed. It took me a while to hear it. The thumping. I'm told the news sheets have called it a crime of passion. The reaction of a hysterical woman to her being scorned. But in reality, I was beyond feeling by the time I climbed the stairs. My mind wasn't even with them in that room when I kicked open the door. It was with my son. And it was with my son still when I was thrown here. I would have found him. You cannot keep him from me. Where is my son? I want my son! They tell me every day that they found him, that he's safe, that he'll visit me soon. Is he coming today? Will he come tomorrow? Why does Edgar never come? They're lying to me. I know they are. They haven't found him. Nobody knows. They won't bring him to me. Not if I beg for years. Unless they're not lying. Unless he's chosen. No. I don't regret it. I won't. I can't. At least he never saw me cowed and cringing. He'll hear rumors, dreadful stories, but he'll never think me a fool or a slave. I have nowhere to go, no one to please. That's very strange for me. In fact, I have very little to do at all but sit and think and try to remember. But they say too much stimulation is bad for me. By stimulation, I think they mean dreaming of that other life, and that house, that man, that child. I wonder the strangest things. Who's feeding the cat? What are the servants saying about it all? I had ordered a hat, lilac, with white ribbons, very dainty. Is it waiting ready at Master Vitelli's? Has he sold it on? I've no doubt the orchids are still there. On the drawing room mantel, rotting. If peaceful would be an exaggeration, it's at least consistent here. There's a rhythm that never varies much. The sounds at night can be awful. The slamming of doors, the laughter and chatter of the lunatics. But by day, there's sometimes a lark that flits to the windowsill. And there's a breeze. I can smell the sun-baked heather of a nearby field. I carry with me a secret, shameful sense of relief. Here, there's no one to think of but myself. Decisions, consequences, mine and mine alone. No rewards, no punishment, no bartering obeisances for kisses, no walking on eggshells, no expectations to meet. Grief, I can understand. Even complicated grief. Grief is less turbulent. Isolation, less confusing. How lucky I am to be free from the influence of men.